There we go. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to my fifth tip in my series of international travel tips. So, welcome. Happy Mother's Day. Please excuse me. Pardon my allergies. It's springtime here in Oregon, and I feel a little bit puffy and sniffly. so, pardon my allergies. Oops, there we go. We are live. That's for sure. We are live on Facebook and Instagram talking about international travel health today. Yep, here we go. So this is the fifth in my series. You can see the others below or above on this page. And we're sharing tips for international travel. So I've traveled around the world, and I just want to share my tips for traveling safely. I'm going to share my health travel tips and also tell you about my course at the end, my online self-paced course called Travel Like a Pro. And that's at christinelder.com/travel. So why do I have these two apples with me? Apples signify health. As we say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So the topic of health can be quite tricky. It can be expensive, and there's a lot of choices to make when you are planning a trip, especially an international travel tip. I mean, an international travel trip. So today I'm going to share with you how to stay healthy by doing plenty of pre-trip planning, and then best practices for being healthy while you're in country. So I've got a lot to share about this because I've had lots of mistakes and mishaps while I've been traveling. So I want to share my mistakes and also my solutions. So, I've had food poisoning in Turkey, and I've been stung by jellyfish in the Mediterranean. I've been stung by urticating caterpillars. I've been stung by bees while I'm riding a Harley Davidson motorcycle up to the top of Kilauea. What else has happened to me? Stung by, bitten by leeches in Borneo. I had my crown fall out last year, the day I was flying to Costa Rica. I've been with friends who've broken their ankles and had to be rushed to the emergency room in Mexico. I've been seasick underwater, 30 feet underwater in Cozumel, and threw up my mango breakfast. So lots of fun mishaps. But the thing about mishaps, especially if they're not too terribly serious, are they make great travel stories, right? So I just want you to just have the overall picture that, you want to use your horse sense, use your, best choices while you're traveling, but don't have an irrational fear of travel. You're not going to probably get dengue fever or, malaria, but, it's more likely that you'll have, things like an upset stomach or a twisted ankle or a sunburn. And so most of those things are easily preventable and prepared for beforehand. So yeah, and don't fear getting injured or sick in another country. We shouldn't be thinking that the United States, where I'm coming to you from, has the best health care in the world. It certainly doesn't. So there are many places in the world where you should feel just as safe and comfortable going to a doctor or emergency room or getting prescription medications filled. In fact, a lot of the times they're cheaper and more readily available than in the United States. So yeah, first we're going to talk about pre-trip planning and then best practices in the country. Okay, and yep. Okay, let's get going. Let's make sure we got everything ready here. So, like I said before, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, you really want to do a lot of pre trip planning, regardless of whether you're going to the outback of Australia or, London or Central or South America. It doesn't matter where you're going, you want to have some good pre trip planning. So, related to health, your planning is going to depend on where you're going, the type of country, whether it's first world or third world, developing country, um, what kind of activities you're doing. Of course, if you're scuba diving or mountain climbing, that's going to be a lot different than if you're just sightseeing, around the streets of Paris. And also, your planning will depend on how long you're going to be gone. So most people, when they're traveling, they're just on a vacation for a week or two. I tend to go for longer periods because I'm generally combining my trip with teaching at a festival or going to a conference or leading a tour. So I'm often gone for a while, sometimes up to several months, like my upcoming trip to Central America. So those are things, you want to think about. So again, your destination, your length of stay, and your activities, and particularly the habitat in the country. Are you going to be at the beach or the cloud forests or that kind of thing? So, the first thing you want to do is really learn a bit about your destination, about the common diseases that might be there, vaccines you might need, things that might injure you, like various types of wildlife. Again, I tend to go to pretty exotic places like Borneo and Peru. So, I'm often going to be among animals that are like venomous snakes and spiders and poisonous plants. So it's really good to research your destination, the health concerns that you might have there, and be ready for those. Now, depending on what country you live in, your government probably has a national website related to health. So here in America, in the United States, we have the Centers for Disease Control, and they have an excellent website that talks about travel preparation, and especially what to prepare for depending on the country you're going to. And so also about vaccines. Now with COVID, I certainly recommend the COVID vaccine, and, getting current on all your normal vaccines. And so you should probably have one of these vaccine cards that you fill out and keep up to date. Now, there are certain vaccines that pretty much everybody has had since they were a child. And then there's other vaccines that are recommended based on your destination. And you'll just have to have a discussion with your primary care physician before you leave about whether you really need those vaccines. For example, in Central America, some places have yellow fever, but I'm not going to be taking a yellow fever vaccine because I'm not going to be in that kind of really rural, deep, dark jungle. So, just because a certain country has recommended vaccines doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in that region or that habitat where you'd need that. So it's really a case by case issue. So before you go traveling, again, one of the most pre-trip important things to do is to have a checkup with your primary care physician and just go over recommended vaccines, update all of your prescription medications and try to get extra medications if you can for emergencies. Just having a general health checkup. And I like to have my doctor print out a list of sort of my ongoing health issues, and anything chronic or acute going on, so that if I do have to be hospitalized, then I already kind of know what the issues could be. I mean, like, you never know if you're going to have a burst appendix, but if you have like gallstones or kidney stones, that might be something to know about and think about. So again, one of the first things you should really do is have a checkup with your primary care doctor. And then you should make a list, a contact list of all of your doctors and specialists, and how to get a hold of them, and any sort of prescriptions, list of prescriptions you have, that kind of thing. Make sure when you're getting your prescriptions that you have them in their original bottle. That helps with the documentation in case you do need to get those refilled. And I like to keep my medications and prescriptions in one of these cute little boxes, which is nice and compact. Let's see. You should also, go and get an eye checkup and a dental checkup. Again, this depends on the length of your trip. But for me, I need my crown replaced next week so that my teeth are all good. And, getting a new prescription for your glasses, especially if you're going to be driving or if you need prescription sunglasses. Many of us when we're traveling, we might be out on the water, in a, whale watching maybe or fishing. And it's nice to have prescription sunglasses that have polarized lenses so that it cuts some of the glare. So, just getting all of those things set up before you leave. Also, making sure you've set up, assembled a little first aid kit. And let me see, I've got everything here. So inside my course, you can download this first aid kit checklist. And this has a whole list of everything I carry. And you only need a few pills of each, like anti-diarrheal and motion sickness, those kind of things. You don't need a whole big doctor's bag full of things. Everything that I have here could pretty much fit in a gallon Ziploc bag. So assemble that. But also, don't be too afraid to forget something, because remember, there's 195 countries around the world, and other people get motion sickness and, constipation or diarrhea everywhere. So, foodborne illnesses are quite common. So it's likely pretty easy for you to refill a prescription or get a medication when you're traveling. It can take some time out of your day, but it's easily done. Okay, and then also preparing for your specific activities you're going to want to be doing in terms of health. So I often like to go snorkeling or scuba diving, and so I'm going to make sure that I have my snorkel mask. Again, those masks can be fit with prescription lenses so that you can see all those exotic fishes better underwater, and just preparing for the activities. So like with snorkeling, I love to have one of these. So I don't go snorkeling in a bikini. I wear one of these that are going to protect me from not only getting sunburned, but also getting stung by jellyfish. And I actually have one of these that has long sleeves and long pants. It's like a bodysuit, but very, very lightweight. And that protects me a lot from jellyfish, because I seem to attract those wherever I go, whether I'm in the Asia or the Caribbean or the Mediterranean. They seem to like me. So again, maybe if you're going hiking, make sure you have the right hiking boots that are broken in so that you're not going to get any blisters. And so, just using your common sense with those kind of things. Also getting in shape for something. So, if you're going to be hiking one of the grand routes of Europe and hiking for 5 or 10 or 15 miles a day, you better start training for that a few months beforehand, depending upon the activity. So, you don't want to be sore and tired when you're traveling from your activities. You can't be a weekend warrior, right? Also, what's really important is health insurance. And of course, the older we get, like me, the more important that becomes. And so you really need to look into that. And again, talk to your doctor, research online. There are some links inside my website for recommended companies. And so, not only getting travel insurance when you buy your flights, which usually covers things like lost baggage or canceled flights, but also health insurance, which is different. So, first check with your existing health insurance to see if you have any coverage when you're traveling. And of course, if something does happen to you while you're traveling, keep all of your receipts just in case you can get reimbursed. But there definitely are companies, insurance companies, that specialize in travel health, and in people that are more like semi permanent digital nomads traveling the world, like I'm working on becoming. So you want to look those up. Their cost really relates to how long your trip is, how expensive it is, and your age. So for me, my upcoming trip is going to be about $600 for that travel health insurance because of my age and the length of my upcoming trip. So, another thing related to pre-trip planning is try not to, try any new medications or new routines too close to your travel. And again, if you're trying to get in shape for a particular activity, try to take it easy and start way ahead of time so that you're not working yourself too hard and actually injuring yourself before your trip. You wouldn't want that to happen. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the pre-trip planning for thinking about health when you're traveling, especially internationally, let's talk about when you're actually in the field, in country, as they say. What are some health practices? And so, again, using common sense, using horse sense, uh, you know, use a bit more caution than you normally would at home. Because at home, if you twist your ankle or get a sunburn after a day out, you just go home and treat it and you can lay low for the weekend. But that's not true when you're traveling. Every single day matters a lot, and you've paid a lot for a trip and gotten maybe time off of work. So every day is valuable, and any time off from injury or illness is going to be really affecting your trip. So, just using common sense, and try not to be in, total vacation mode when your brain is sort of empty. Be present, be here now, be a bit more cautious than normal, but again, not so much that it's going to ruin your trip. Okay. Now, one thing I did forget, that if you are going to someplace more remote, maybe you're going to be volunteering with wildlife or doing a volunteer project with the rural village in Asia or Africa, you might want to take a first aid class. Like the American Red Cross here in the United States has various levels of first aid classes, including wilderness first aid. And those kind of things are really helpful in bad situations. So, what else was I going to say about that? Yeah. So, so again, just using common sense, avoiding, strange foods. But don't fear street food. Again, here we are talking about food today, and an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So, one of the great joys of traveling is exploring foods. At least for me, I love sampling various cuisines, whether I'm, eating pasta in Italy or, seafood in Southeast Asia. You really want to, explore that. So, be cautious, but don't be overly cautious. In terms of food, that's one of the main things that can happen to people is foodborne illnesses. And I've had that a lot. And sometimes it was my own fault. Once when I was in Turkey, I was traveling with a friend who was a vegetarian, and he was smart. He did not eat the meat that had been sitting in an unrefrigerated case in the grocery store for too long. And I ate it, and I got terrible food poisoning. I was sick for about 2 weeks. And it was not fun, especially when we had to get on a bus and go up and over a windy mountain pass up and over to the coast. I was so sick, and I don't want to go into the details, but I really wish that the bus driver would have stopped more often for me. So, a lot of foodborne illnesses can be, prevented. Now, things are a lot more safe than they used to be. People used to be really afraid of eating, fresh fruit or salads or drinking tap water. So that's really improved in a lot of countries because people know that tourism is, the lifeblood of their economy. And so, again, it just depends exactly, where you're at, what you need to do. But I don't think, no, I've never gotten sick from eating fruits and vegetables. I did throw up that mango 30 feet underwater in the Mediterranean, but that wasn't because of the mangoes. That was because I got seasick snorkeling. And I was really bummed because all of my other friends on that scuba diving trip, actually, they got to see seahorses and I missed them. So, yeah, so foodborne illnesses are one of the main things you're going to get. You're generally not going to get crazy things like dengue fever. It's going to be more often things like food poisoning, seasickness, that kind of thing. So, in terms of food, again, don't be afraid of food, just be cautious. I really love exploring the food carts, in the outdoor food scene in lots of historic cities around the world. And, the rule of thumb there is you should go to places where there's a lot of locals, where there's a line, and you see they're really preparing a lot of fresh food. And that's going to save you a lot of grief. So I've never gotten sick from eating street food. I remember having fresh fried churros in Mexico, where we actually watched them fry the churro pastry in a big vat of oil and then roll it in powdered sugar and cinnamon. And that was so good. So, again, there's a lot of illnesses you can get from food and water, but just be cautious. So, but again, don't overdo it when you're traveling. Many of us go on vacation and we just kind of forget about our diet and we, have too many Italian gelatos and French wines and Spanish charcuterie. Maybe you try something crazy like I had wild boar in Corsica and live oysters in Sicily. So, don't overdo it. You want to keep your routines that you have at home, your healthy eating routines. So eating plenty of just fruits and vegetables, and sometimes that's hard to find because often when you're at a lodge or a hotel or a fancy restaurant, they think fruits and vegetables are kind of lowly for like poor people. But so often, when you're traveling, it's easy to load up on too much meat and pasta. So it's really important to keep getting, all your servings of fruits and vegetables and fiber. And carrying a water bottle is good because you can have supplements. Like a lot of people I know have different fiber and vitamin and mineral supplements they take, the little packets that you can pour in. Now, I haven't tried those, but there's companies like AG Greens and Element, which are highly rated by folks I know. Another reason, though, to bring a water bottle is you'll save a lot on plastic. The downside of these so many countries having better water nowadays is actually because they're just giving you bottled water. And I've sometimes been on tours where, all we had was bottles, little bottles this size, and you were wasting, 10 plastic bottles a day. And it just broke my heart. So, it's really good to try to fill up on your water at your hotel before you go out for a day. And that'll save a lot in terms of having healthy water and not wasting plastic. Okay. And so, yeah, it's keeping up with a healthy routine because it's easy if you eat the wrong foods or not enough of the right foods to get diarrhea or constipation. And those are usually pretty easy to remedy, again, with your first aid kit that I share in my travel course. So, there is potential for other more serious waterborne illnesses like hepatitis A and B, typhoid. Now, currently, I'm updating my typhoid vaccines. And again, that's something that you want to talk to your doctor about before you leave, getting your vaccines, at least scheduling those like a month before you travel, because certain vaccines come in a series. Like this one is every other day for 3 days. And other vaccines take several weeks to activate. Another example about vaccines and medications is malaria. So that's something that's found in a lot of tropical regions of the world, spread by a mosquito. And that is something that you can take. But again, you want to talk to your doctor about it. There are pros and cons to a lot of vaccines. So, like, malaria, you have to start taking that, I believe, several weeks beforehand and also during your trip. But it can have some side effects, including making you more sensitive to the sun, which isn't good if you're out, trying to be beachcombing, right? So anyway, just talk to your doctor, because I obviously am not a doctor. I'm a naturalist. Closest I came to being a doctor is having a master's degree in biology. So always consult with your physicians. So yeah, so there are waterborne illnesses, like I said, hepatitis and typhoid. So just be careful about water. But just it really depends on the location you're at. And so, other illnesses you could have, including communicable diseases. Where else was I with that? I got a little lost here. I got lots of notes. So yeah, we talked about diet and water and food. And then really, though, a lot of other things that could affect your health while traveling, including like sunburns. So, that's a common thing. You don't think of that much, but, definitely use your sunscreen and, get a little bit of a tan before you leave. Here in Oregon, we've had beautiful weather this week. So I've been getting outdoors a little bit more and trying to get some sun on myself so I don't get a sunburn when I travel soon. So, sunburns can, not only affect your skin and give you a higher incidence of skin cancer later in life, but they're also an inconvenience and they're painful. And again, they'll affect your trip and have you not be able to enjoy the day after you get a sunburn as much, right? So, wear sunscreen, wear a wide brimmed hat, wear long sleeves and long pants. And those will also help you against insects. So I'd say another one of the main things that can happen to you while you're traveling, besides foodborne illnesses and sunburns and twisted ankles, are insect bites. So as I said earlier, I've been bitten by leeches in Borneo and stung by urticating caterpillars in Honduras. And oh yeah, once when I was riding a Harley Davidson motorcycle up to the top of, what was that, Haleakala, I think, in Maui. Yeah. So I'm riding along and a bee, or maybe it was a wasp, it flies into my leather jacket and up my arm while I'm going like 40 miles an hour up this twisty road up to the volcano. And I could have had an accident and died if I would have panicked. But I kept my head together, pulled over to the side of the road, remembered to put my kickstand down on the Harley so I didn't drop it. And then I panicked and jumped off the bike, got my leathers off, got the wasp off me. I still got stung, but so, insect stings and bites are probably one of the most common things that can happen when you're traveling. And, I suggest generally wearing long sleeves and long pants. Now, it depends. If you're in a modern city like Vienna or something, or London, you're not going to have issues with that as much. But, I tend to travel to a little bit more moisture, more humid and insect infested places. So I'm generally wearing very light layers of long sleeves and pants, with sometimes my pants even tucked into my socks to prevent insects getting in there, and leeches and snakes and things like that. So those are some tips for avoiding sunburn, avoiding what did I say, insects and foodborne illnesses. Uh, Now, yes, speaking of insects, yeah, you want to really focus on mosquitoes because they do carry a lot of different diseases. But sandflies and chiggers can be even worse. I remember getting bit on the beaches in Mexico by these sandflies that I had scars for a couple years from those things, and they were so itchy. So again, I hadn't didn't use the right insecticide or have long pants on that day. Now, it is good to have insecticides. I don't really like using things like DEET, but I will use them sparingly and make sure I wash them off well when I get back out of the field. Um, you also might want to ask the locals what they use because sometimes some insect repellents work better than others in different regions of the world. Also, speaking of animals, try to avoid petting too many animals. I know I am an animal lover, and you might be as well if you're here on my one of my pages, because I usually share nature sketching and journaling and wildlife education tips. But I love animals, and I have the tendency to want to go pet that little poor sad little street dog, or go pet a cat at the entrance to a restaurant, or pet a horse when I'm walking down a road bird watching. But it's kind of best to stay away from animals, especially cats and dogs, because they not only might bite you, but they could carry fleas and ticks and mange and other things that you don't want to be in contact with. Now, so another thing that can happen a lot is seasickness. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but that's really common when you're traveling. You might be taking a ferry somewhere, you might be on a cruise, you might be wanting to kayak. You might be swimming or snorkeling. So there's a lot of places that you might get seasickness, and some people are much more prone to that than others. I definitely am. I have a hard time just going kayaking on a local lake here in Oregon without getting a little bit of seasickness. So I really cover that base well. And there are some prescription medications you can ask for from your doctor. But I also just like things like ginger candies and those acupressure things that go around your wrist. And yeah, different kinds of patches, like the one behind your ear, and there's different oral medications. So there's lots of ways to prevent seasickness. I remember, yeah, what was another one I had? Yeah, floating down the upper Amazon. We were on this little rickety boat all day, and I not only got seasickness, but it was really hot and I was getting sunburned. And I just laid down in the bottom of the boat and covered myself with wet rags and tried to wait till it was over. But if you really tackle this proactively, you can really prevent seasickness. Like once when I was lucky enough to go to the Galapagos Islands, I really wanted to go snorkeling with the hammerhead sharks. And so I was able to do that because I had a combination of 4 different seasickness medications. And I wasn't going to let that ruin a very expensive, once in a lifetime bucket list trip. So, yeah. So if you are interested in learning more about international travel and health related issues and all the other things I've covered the last 4 days and I'm covering the next week, I really suggest and invite you to check out my online course. I'm going to have links down below, and you can also just go to my website at christineelder.com www.travel. And that course is an online self-paced course. I call it Travel Like a Pro, and it can be useful for anyone, but the focus is on international travel. So covering things like destinations and passports and money, which we'll talk about tomorrow, and health. And it's also really helpful for maybe well seasoned older gals like me who maybe you haven't had the chance to travel as much and you need to gain some skills and confidence to do that. So that course comes with, like I was talking about, my first aid kit checklist, which is part of this big list I have called the Epic Guide and Checklist to Prepping and Packing for Adventure. My course also includes travel journaling, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a week or so. So this is my guide to how to document your trip. And then, yeah, there's also interviews with other women who've traveled. So to help inspire you, seeing other women going off on their own, being brave enough to tackle the world. So, like I said, tomorrow we're talking about money. So, how to pay, how to get paid, how to manage your finances, how not to get in trouble with money, and how to avoid getting your money and your identity and your credit cards stolen, all that kind of valuable stuff. So, I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow afternoon, I think. Just watch for the link. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me today for these quick tips for international travel related to health, both preparing for your trip before you leave and also best practices during your trip. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again in the next video training. Bye-bye.